Hello, and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm the therapist, Tess Brigham.
And I'm Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
And we are back. We are covering a new Netflix 3-part documentary called Badinfluence, The Dark Side of Kidfluencing. It's a very hard word to say.
Kidfluencing.
Yeah. And so we have a quick synopsis to kind of give people a sense of it, and then we're gonna be talking about it and different themes and such. So,
okay, so this is actually from an article in the Guardian. Okay, the 3-part documentary focuses on the rise and, if not fall, then a forcible diversification of child, then teen social media star Piper Rockelle and her mother and manager Tiffany Smith. After Rockelle's success within the bizarre American phenomenon that is the toddler and child pageantry circuit, Smith took her onto social media. To increase her daughter's appeal and her YouTube channel views and follower numbers, Smith gradually added other children, friends, performers, to Rockelle's videos, and they became known and loved by their ever-growing audience as the Squad. Smith's much younger boyfriend, Hunterhill, would film the videos as she directed. At her peak, Rockelle was making more than $500,000 a month from her content. In 2022, 11 former members of the Squad filed a lawsuit against Smith and Hill, alleging violations of child labor laws, alongside being subject to inappropriate, offensive, and abusive treatment, including wildly offensive and sexually explicit comments from Smith. One former member, Corinne, says she remembers at the age of 12 or 13 going to a post office with Smith, who was sending off what appeared to be a package of Rockelle's underwear. When she asked why, she said Smith declared, "Old men like to smell it." Smith and Hill deny all allegations, and the lawsuit was settled last year without admission of any liability. Across 3 episodes, there are interviews with former performers, none of whom look old enough to be long out of their teens, if they are at all. We hear from family members who become increasingly concerned about the filming, and I'm going to start calling her Piper. I don't know, they call her last name. And Piper's apparent absence from school from the age of 8. And we meet the mothers of the children who took part. Builds a picture of a woman whose powers of manipulation and business savvy found an ideal home in the shadowy world of online content creation with children. The field operates on the margin between professional and domestic, so nobody can be sure where labor laws, for example, begin or end, or when allowing children to express themselves on camera for fun morphs into monetization. It is deeply murky as to whether monetization can ever be anything other than exploitation, or whether children expressing themselves on camera for fun can ever be benign, given what we know about the likelihood of predators in their potential audience. The program notes a study that found that 60% of content discovered on the computers of people sexually interested in children came from social media sites, and about 92% of an audience for teen girl influencers is likely to be adult men.
oh my God.
Beyond that, of course, there are the shocking allegations about Smith's sexual behavior towards the children, which, if the claims are true, does not operate at shadowy margins, but is clearly wrong in every way. And the program touches on the power of people with Smith's apparent gifts for dividing, ruling, and gaslighting, to create a cult-like group that even unsettled adults, soon forbidden to attend their children's filming sessions, were reluctant to leave for fear of the consequences. That said, it did feel that the question of parental responsibility was slightly glossed over by the filmmakers. It doesn't lessen the magnitude of Smith's crimes to ask as well where other boundaries lie.
Okay. Well, what did you think high level of the whole thing?
I just thought it was obviously disturbing and just strange. Like, I didn't even know that I I just felt out of it. Like, I didn't really know that this world existed. I mean, I can recall, like, when my daughter was a preteen, she would watch some of these things. I think like the Logan Paul videos and, she would watch stuff on YouTube, but I feel like most of the stuff she was watching was like makeup tutorials and, shopping hauls and get ready with me, that kind of thing. I don't feel like she was really into this type of thing, because it's really, the stuff that the kids are doing is really silly and goofy. And I guess it's fine because it's not, the people who are consuming it are perverts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it kind of doesn't matter what the kids are doing, because I'm not really sure how many other kids are really watching this.
Yeah. I mean, 92% of that's what the stat was from The Guardian. 92% of teen girl accounts are followed by adult men.
Well, let me see. What was that? It was 60% of content discovered on the computers of people sexually interested in children came from social media sites. And 92% of an audience for teen girl influencers is likely to be adult men. So yeah, so 92% of the people who are watching these silly videos are adult men who, okay, so that means that no, actual kids don't find this entertaining. And that's why we don't really know about it, because our kids never watched it.
Because I asked Max about it, I was like, do you know who Piper Rockelle is? Do you know this? Do you know the squad? And he's looking at me like I'm speaking another language. He's like, what? No. And so I was like, okay, well, because Piper was born in 2007 and so was my son. So I thought, well, maybe there was some, he would be interested in this. And I know that Max over the years has watched like these boy videos of guys doing goofy things and like, hitting, doing all that kind of stuff.
Like the Jackass video.
Yeah, but he actually, it's funny, like by 12, 13, he was kind of over that. I mean, since then he's very into politics, but Max is like an old man. He loves to watch movies about World War II and eat soup. So his favorite food is soup. So he is kind of an old man in his own ways, but yeah, I mean, that's the other part that's really weird. It's like, why would anyone watch this who isn't like 8 or 9 years old? Who would find this entertaining unless
and apparently not even 8 and 9 year olds are finding it entertaining, because they're really not watching. I mean, that 92%.
That's crazy.
That's insane. I mean, so to keep your audience, you have to make it increasingly more and more sexual. And that's what the mother Tiffany was doing.
Yeah.
She was just, she was making these kids make out with each other.
Yes.
These preteens make out with each other. And she's sexually deviant also, because she was like, sexually, touching them inappropriately and trying to do inappropriate things. And so I guess she knows what sexually deviant people want.
Oh yeah. I mean, Tiffany is diabolical. I mean, has there been another character that we've interacted with? This woman is truly diabolical and evil on so many levels. And one of the people that are interviewed is Tiffany's sister, Patience. And we meet Patience's wife, because the two of them have kids together, and each of their kids was part of the squad. And because they were Piper's cousin, there was this family relationship. And the only thing that we hear from Patience is their parents got divorced, and that there was a lot of anger from Tiffany around the time that their parents got divorced when they were kids. And that Patience herself had separated herself from Tiffany because she was difficult to deal with. And then it wasn't until like the pandemic and all that, and they got back together, and that's when they started spending more time, and the kids wanted to be part of this. But we never really did hear much more about Tiffany and Patience's childhood. I mean, I'm just fascinated, because there's got to be, I mean, my instinct is, and again, this is just, I have, my 2 cents, which is to me, I feel like something happened to Tiffany. Like something, it's like, what happened to you, Tiffany, that got you to this place? Because, if both the sister and Tiffany were, if that was an issue, it would be a different story. It's just like something happened to Tiffany that didn't happen to Patience.
This is not about their parents' divorce.
Yes.
This is something much deeper. But the sister really, to me, seemed very shut down. And there was something off about her too, I think. I think something happened to her too. She's just not acting out the way that Tiffany is acting out.
And she, rightly so, does not want to talk about it.
Yeah, it almost seemed like she was forced to be in this film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because she didn't say much, really.
Yeah, she definitely had this energy about her that was a bit closed off, but she was able to see Tiffany very clearly, for what was going on. So I don't know, but something happened. Something went wrong in all of this, because this is just, how do you get here? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I mean, she groomed these kids and she gained the trust. This is a classic cult behavior. Yeah, like they're grooming and then getting the parents to trust her. And I think that the Guardian, article is right in that we did kind of gloss over the parents' responsibilities. They brought all these parents on who look like all the mothers, who all look like perfectly nice people, I guess, with seemingly good intentions. And I mean, are you that desperate to have your child be on, some highly, downloaded YouTube show, which is downloaded by, again, a bunch of perverted men, that you would just give your child over to this? And then she says, oh, well, you can't watch the filming anymore. And I mean, that's disturbing too, is that in our culture now, like, the biggest thing is to be famous in some way, shape, or form, even if it's YouTube famous, Instagram famous, Instagram model. You don't have to be the traditional, now we have these outlets where people can be very successful. And it was like, they seem to be so excited at the prospect that their kids would be involved in this. And the number of hours that went into it, I mean, that's not healthy.
Yeah. So that's, because when they filed the lawsuit, there was a lot of criticism of the parents. We saw that on the comments. Like, a lot of people were saying things to the parents, like, this is on you, blah, blah, blah. And the parents, few of the parents did defend themselves because they feel like they were manipulated too. And they were, they were sort of roped in. The one thing that really bothers me about all of this is I can see how a parent might say, well, I thought, my child wants to be, because they were all like actors. They all were doing other things, right? A lot of them were actors going out on jobs and ended up becoming a YouTube sensation or whatever it is. I could see how they might approach this and say, okay, well, my kid enjoys doing this. They seem to be having fun, but your kid is disappearing for 12, 13 hours a day. Like, that's the part that I'm a little bit like, it'd be one thing if the hours were 9 to 5 and there was someone on the set and they were just being taken and you didn't know it, blah, blah. But there's a little bit of like, but your kid's been gone 12 hours. Like, you're not even going to stop? Or maybe Tiffany manipulated them so much of like, oh, they're just spending the night. No, they're not filming. Oh, they're just having fun. I don't know. I don't know what she told these parents, but it did feel like there was that one parent, the parent of Sophie, Heather. This was another part about the documentary that was very hard, was there were a lot of kids and it was hard to keep track of all the kids. And then you had to keep track of the parents and then which parent with whomever. So, and
you see the kids in various ages. Like,
yes.
You see them when they're much younger and then you see them present day and
So I think that's Heather. Heather is the mother of Sophie. Hopefully I got that right. And I think they were the ones that moved in and lived there. And so that mother,
she was the one with the blonde hair. The long blonde hair.
And she was interesting because there was this thing of like, almost as if she knew it was bad, but she felt like she had to stay to protect Piper, or, it was just, there was a lot of weirdness happening here, a lot of it.
Yes, because Tiffany bought this big home in
the Hills.
LA?
Yeah, the Hollywood Hills. Yeah.
Hollywood Hills. Bought this big home, and that was the home base. And Heather and her daughter moved in, and that's where these kids would spend like 12 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't know what was going on during that whole time. Because the footage, I wonder how they got that footage, because they show all this footage of the kids inside the house and filming these scenes. And that would have been Tiffany and Hunter's property. I'm not quite sure how they got a hold of that.
Didn't know if maybe someone else, like one of the kids, was filming at the same time and just happened to get that and gave it over to the producers. Mm-hmm. That I was wondering about that as well. Because I could see how if there was raw, unedited footage, but that would be Hunter and Tiffany's as well. So,
yeah, because they show them when they're trying to set up the scene where, I don't know if it was Piper or another girl, kissing this boy, a little bit, when she gets a little bit older, but not much, like 12 years old. Mm-hmm. And that was another thing too. They started heavily sexualizing it and making couples.
The relationships.
The ships. Yeah. And I mean, just pushing these children to be making out on film, and
yeah,
that's why it's really something else, really creepy.
Yeah. Well, so it introduced us to a whole world of stuff that I just didn't know about. I didn't know that there was a Disney Channel, like that was a branch of Disney that's a YouTube channel where they had original programming, because that's how Piper started in the pageant circuit, and then she was on Dance Twins, which I had never heard of. You were a Dance Moms person. I don't know what Dance Twins are.
I don't know what Dance Twins is.
It was Dance Twins, right? And then, and it's crazy how much a popularity. I mean, that's the part about all this, is how there are these pockets of just where you are a huge, big deal in the pockets of these people. So she goes to Dance Twins. They move to LA, and she gets this role on the show Manny, which is like this male nanny, and it's a kid's show, and it looks very much like Nickelodeon or, and those Disney shows. I didn't even know that existed.
I never heard of that.
And then pretty soon, right, Tiffany loses her mind when Piper's not getting most of the lines or all the lines. And that's when she kind of pulls her out and she starts this whole thing. You have to give Tiffany some credit, because she really did sit down and study YouTube and studied like what is going to work, what's not going to work. And she put her child in the center of it. Mm-hmm. And she was monetizing and making so much money off of her kid and all of these other kids. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of crazy how these parents were acting, because they didn't even really know how much money Tiffany was making. They didn't even know their kids were doing all these videos, and she never offered to pay them. She never offered anything.
Yeah. And at one point she was making like $500,000 a month.
Yeah.
Off of YouTube.
Just YouTube. There's lots of other streams. There's brand deals. There's all of it. So,
and she paid them nothing?
The sense that I get is they didn't really make much from those videos. I think what happened is they then would set up their own channels. So they would set up this other channel so that they themselves, like the kid Sawyer. So Sawyer's channel, I think he made money from his own channel, but he was regularly doing things on Piper's channel and not getting anything. And I think that's the other part of it too, that why it's very, very hard to stop this is there are so many kids out there that, and especially in this kind of industry where people they think they want to do anything for fame. They will do anything. So even if the parents kind of stepped in and said, wait a second, this person isn't paying us, I think the kids would still be like, it's okay. I don't need to get paid. I don't need this. I don't need that. I think Tiffany really was able to capitalize on how much the kids wanted it, how important it was, and the fact that it was the wild, wild west and that there weren't any regulations, coupled with like this cult-like, I mean, she must have studied cults because that's also what she was doing.
But all the kids say, they interview the kids present day, and they all say that at some point they became very uncomfortable. And it was almost like they couldn't say anything. I felt like they felt that they couldn't say anything to their parents, like, I don't want to do this. And they certainly never told the parents until much later. And they couldn't say, I don't want to do this, because they had already invested so much into this. And it was really sad how, God, children are just so, vulnerable and easy to exploit.
Yeah.
Knowingly or unknowingly. Because I really feel like the parents unknowingly exploited them. And obviously these kids didn't feel comfortable enough to go to the parents and say, I don't want to do this. This isn't right. Maybe some of them did. We just didn't hear from them because they're not in the documentary. But yeah, that's why, it's so hard for children to speak up, because especially Piper, her mom's just going to give up $500,000 a month because Piper doesn't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. What's crazy is that in the last episode, we hear about how, so I guess that when the lawsuit was filed, YouTube, sort of their way of punishing you is, we're going to take away your ability to make money off of ads. And that was huge. And so Tiffany had to diversify. She had to figure out, like, oh, if she's not going to be making money from ads, I've got to figure out other ways for for Piper to make money. And that's the part that is really just diabolical, because obviously they had enough money to live. If you're making on average $6 million a year for a couple years, like,
you can live off that forever.
You can live off that for a long, long time. And so there's like, that's the part that really hit me was, oh, wow. Like, when YouTube stopped, it wasn't sort of like, oh, you can go on vacation now. It was like, oh no, you've got to find new ways to make money. And I sadly think next step is, Piper's going to be on OnlyFans.
Yeah.
And she's turning 18 this year. I don't know when her birthday is, but she's turning 18. And it makes me wonder, like, is she so indoctrinated and she cannot see straight that she is going to stay there and keep going? Or is she going to like pack her bags and go? And I really hope she packs her bags and goes.
Yeah. Cause I don't think they addressed this at the very end, but is she still on social media or at all? Or
I don't know.
She completely off.
Well, she joined these other platforms that are even more questionable, like these other platforms they were talking about. She joined Snapchat and Brand Army. And Brand Army is this platform where you can be a minor to create content, but you have to be over 18 to subscribe. So it's almost a little bit like,
oh my God. It's inviting pedophiles.
Yeah. And also there's lots of, what's happened now is now Piper's 16, as we see her going along, she's 16, 17. And exactly what I think everyone thought was going to happen is happening, which is bikini pictures. She's getting more provocative. She knows what she needs to do. And I unfortunately think that she's, I think her mother has convinced her that this is
the only way to go.
Yeah, this is the only way to be, and you have to keep doing this and keep doing this to make me happy, and this is your life. And she is trafficking her child. She is prostituting her child.
No, absolutely.
She is. I mean, and she was obsessed with one of the kids, Gavin. He was like 12 years old. This little boy, he's 12 or 13.
Well, who was the one that she tried to kiss? Was that Gavin or
no? Well, yeah, she kissed Reagan, who is trans and very open about being trans. And that was one of the things that Reagan talked about was Reagan said, I've always been very open about my journey and my transition. But Tiffany would ask a lot of really probing questions. Like,
yeah, she was obsessed with him.
Yeah, just like, when are you going to get this surgery? Are you going to get this surgery? And this, it's like, whoa, that's really none of your business. So yeah, that's who she kissed. But she obviously, there were more than one incident, it sounds like, with all the kids where she, would almost hold them down and touch them.
That one girl, they describe her like sort of sneaking up on them, and she would start. Well, she had this alter ego when she would start molesting them. Like, I forget the name.
Lenny, the dead cat.
A dead cat. She would talk in this weird voice, and she would start just like rubbing their bodies all over their bodies. And then she was doing other stuff, like the girl. I think it was I can't remember names. I'm sorry, but there was a girl who described how, she would pin her down and do that thing where you hang a loogie over someone.
Yeah, that was Claire.
Face.
That was her niece. Her niece. And that loogie thing. That's what our father did to his brother when he was 8. You know what I mean? Like, those are the stories we grew up with. But that's what like little boys do to each other.
Boys do. I mean, she was sadistic. Yeah. And she had like 70 cats.
It was so
in one house. That sounds disgusting. They were talking about how, I can't remember what it was. It was something like, her cat food bill was like $10,000 a month.
Yes. That was one of the reasons poor Piper's having to put on bikini photos to for these cats. And that's the other problem too, is that, when you see these stories, there's always these common themes. And a common theme with a lot of the stories that we've covered with these documentaries is this weird, like these ways in which they become oddly obsessed with something, where it's almost like Piper's having to work to pay for the cat food. And it's a little bit like, but you don't need 70 cats. Like, there's a way to solve this problem for yourself, but it's like creating problems, creating situations where there's more chaos, even more chaos, and that you can then control this person even more, because now it's about the cats. Your cats won't be able to eat.
And then I know you have feelings about her poor pug.
Yes. No, this is very important, because when I first saw the pug, I was excited. The pug was named Frank, from like that same name from the, was it Frank? Yeah. But what she would do is that Frank, or the pug, she would create this character through the dog, where the dog was apparently like saying things and doing things to one of the kids, like putting the kid down and, putting the kid down, making fun of them, teasing them. And then, but it wasn't really Tiffany. It was the dog. The dog was doing it. And you would hear these stories about, like there were all these kids that she was dealing with, and that she would get all the kids together and be like, okay, let's all be mean to so-and-so. And then so-and-so would walk in and not realize like why everyone's being mean to them. I mean, this is diabolical middle school girl bullying, and using a pug to do that. That is wrong. Pugs are not evil in any way, shape, or form. They do not have those evil thoughts.
Poor Frank.
Yeah. It was just, awful.
Yeah. And then when people when family, parents or the kids or whoever would want to leave, they'd had enough, she would sabotage them. And she would, all of a sudden, their numbers and their YouTube revenue and whatever would just drop and plummet. And so I don't know what she was doing to make that happen, but like you said, she understood YouTube very well.
Yes.
And how to use it. And obviously she was doing something, messing with their numbers in some way. Yeah. Getting people to not watch, or maybe just telling all of Piper's people,
Well, I think there was
subscribe to them.
That was part of it, because each time someone left, just like Scientology, they were like persona non grata, cannot talk to them. And then Piper would get on camera and say, okay, I'm unfollowing Sawyer now. I'm unfollowing Corinne, And I think it was that. But what they found was at the 3rd episode, Sawyer's parents, they were showing the attorney. They're like, Sawyer left the squad, but no one publicly knew, but his number started dropping. So how is that possible?
Yeah.
That means that Tiffany and Hunter were doing something. And they said something, I'm so confused about this, but they said something about how like they'll embed these sites in porn sites or gambling sites so that...
And then they get banned or
YouTube flags them as inappropriate content.
Oh.
And then they don't get monetized or they don't, there's, I guess there's things to do, but because they took, Hunter was the videographer, because they took all of these, they had so much control. That's all they needed to do was just, okay, well, I'll just log in as you and I'll just, embed it in this porn site and there you go.
Oh yeah. They probably had all of their passwords and stuff. That was probably required that they had all the kids' passwords. So that makes sense.
Yeah. One criticism I have about this, I have a couple, but one thing about this is, again, I know we say this a lot, but this could have been an episode or two. And it, because there is a certain point at which I can't just keep hearing about how awful Tiffany is. Like, I got it. She's terrible. But the other thing is they would introduce people and then they would disappear. Like they introduced this woman, Ava. She's older. She looks like she's in her 20s. She's an influencer and she auditioned for Dance Moms and she's like a YouTuber. And she talked about growing up on YouTube. And then maybe we hear a comment from her again, and then that's it. And it's like, well, why do we need to, like, there was introduction of a lot of people that said 4 things.
Yeah, it didn't really add anything.
It didn't add anything. We don't need it. Obviously they're going to use all the people that are in the squad and part of this lawsuit, but it just became like excessive at some point with some of the stuff.
Yeah. So. Look, filmmakers, you can really tighten all of this stuff up to 90 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah. So, but yeah, the whole crush thing was really, so disturbing. And so they interview this woman who I really like, Dr. Karen North. She's a clinical professor of communications at USC Annenberg. And what she talks about is, when parents do these kinds of things, when that pushing the kid to, these crushes and the relationships, and these kids are kind of like, I don't even know if I like this person. And now you're, dealing with a lot of adult stuff and you're 12. She says what it does is it violates their innocence. They're stuck between 2 worlds and they don't know which world is normal. And I think that was the part of it. What a lot of those kids talked about is, especially since they had been doing it since they were young, was a little bit of not really knowing, is this normal or not? Because they would see Tiffany and see how she acted out and the yelling and the inappropriate, but she would do it with Piper as well. So it's this weird thing with kids like going, but that's your mom. She's supposed to make you safe. She's an adult. Oh, you're doing that. Okay, then that's right. And what this Dr. North is talking about is this being stuck in these 2 worlds of being a child and being an adult. But I also think about it in terms of like between what is reality and what is a YouTube video, right? Because if this is supposed to be their lives, if this is supposed to be reality TV, how much of this is really how they feel and how much of it is staged? And that can become a little overwhelming, right? When you're a kid, is this really how I feel? Are these real friendships?
It's all staged. And so if as a kid, you're watching it thinking, oh, that's how real life is supposed to be. And if you compare it to your life, it's not that. And so, it's, I think, pretty harmful. But again, it's really not the kids that are watching this stuff.
Yeah.
I just can't get over that statistic.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
Yeah. So, and then another super disturbing thing, because Tiffany obviously knew very clearly. I don't think there's a doubt in my mind. She's mailing men Piper's underwear. And the other thing is we learn about Piper has a fan named Megan. Well, Megan isn't a young girl. Megan is an older man. And what's so weird about it is they still call this person Megan. And apparently, Megan sort of trying to pass themselves off as a young child. And then Megan starts sending Piper gifts, tons of gifts. Tiffany gets some kind of Chanel bag or some kind of Gucci bag. She's getting, Piper's getting laptops and all of these things, to the point where Tiffany would make Piper talk to Megan on the phone. And like, oh, Megan's on the phone. You need to thank them for the gifts. I mean, that's like, you're in the process of using your child. And you know exactly what Megan's up to. Come on, Tiffany.
Yeah. Well, how does this young girl, Megan, have money for Chanel bags and, computers?
Yeah. Well, and obviously it's like, hi, this is Megan. Come on. And then this other thing that got stuck in my mind was one of the kids was talking about how sometimes Piper, this was like 12, 13, 14, that Piper would start to get really upset and, exhausted and tired and would sort of push back on Tiffany. And that when that would happen is sometimes, Tiffany would be like, okay, we're not filming today. Piper doesn't want to. But, they also said that she would, that she and, when Piper got in these moods, she and Piper would leave the house and she would take her on these drives and they would disappear for a long time. And we had no idea where they were going, what they were doing at all. That I thought was very weird. Like, what is happening on these drives? And the other thing I don't know what was happening on those drives, but it does make me wonder, is she's got to be, giving Piper something, some drugs, something. There's something more here that this is, I think she's,
I wonder, if she was taking her to meet men.
That's what I was thinking.
Who contacted, like all these men that are watching this.
And almost kind of like, did she do that as a threat? Like, if you don't do the YouTube videos, this is what your life is going to be.
You're going to have to do.
This is what you're going to have to do. Because God forbid, Tiffany, you go and get a job like everybody else. But okay, Psych Legal Pop, we'll be back after these messages.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, Tiffany, you obviously are right. You could use your skills for good.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter how bright you are if you're mentally ill or, I mean, did I can't remember. There was a bunch of things at the end. Did they say like what she's doing now, what either one of them are doing now? I know they settled that lawsuit because, 11 of the families sued her. And they settled for like $1.85 million.
Which isn't a lot divided by 11 people. Plus you have to pay your attorneys.
Yeah, it's not a lot, but I don't think they wanted to put these kids through a trial. But yeah, I mean, where are they now? I mean, I didn't have time to look into this, but what is she going to do now? Because I'm sure she's already scamming somebody else because not everyone's going to see this documentary, Yeah. They're not going to know like what she's all about.
Yeah. I mean, I'm assuming, I can look it up right now. I'm assuming that Piper probably still has her YouTube, right? Even though she's not,
think so?
She can't monetize it.
Well, then why bother having it?
Oh, okay.
And why can't she monetize it?
Because isn't she still being punished? Or maybe they, maybe because the lawsuit has been settled.
But they didn't sue YouTube. I mean, I don't think.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, she still has Piper Rockelle. She has 12.1 million subscribers.
Oh my God. So this didn't do anything.
No, and all of these videos, I'm just looking at some videos from her. She's, obviously now 17. She looks very adult in these videos. There's this video of her kind of like sexily dancing and her cleavage is shoved up and it says, "When he tries to act like he's my dad." 1.5 million views.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, her next stop
she's
is
singing.
OnlyFans.
Yeah, she's singing to this. Yeah.
Oh, this is awful.
It's like a lot of her sexy photo. She's got like the long nails. Oh my God. And then she's got these other friends who are wearing, young,
So
pretty
it
girls.
continues.
These girls are now, I mean, it's like next stop mom talk, OnlyFans.
No,
I don't know.
OnlyFans. Soon as she turns 18 on her 18th birthday, forget YouTube. We're going to OnlyFans.
Yeah, I'm sure Tiffany's probably created a site for her and everything.
Oh,
she's just waiting for the birthday.
Right.
She just wants to press that button.
Oh my gosh, This is terrible. And
there's also, I saw in the videos, a response from that kid, Jensen. So one of the kids that was part of the squad, he was dating Sophie, and I guess they were actually a real couple. But Jensen, his mom wanted out. She didn't like what was happening. It was, she started having issues. And apparently she got together with some of the other moms and they felt like, okay, we need to approach Tiffany about this. So they got Jensen's dad to be the spokesperson. And Tiffany then gets him and really works her charm on him and convinces him that what they're doing is okay. And basically kind of gets Jensen's dad on her side. So much so that Jensen's mom decided, I've got to divorce this guy and get sole custody of my kid. But now Jensen won't talk to her. I mean, it's like that alienation thing. I mean, I don't know if he's 18 or not, but she's like, I lost my kid. I mean, that is awful.
It is. Everything about this, I mean, it's so disturbing, and how this one woman can wreak so much havoc and is still doing it. I mean, she was sued and she had to pay almost $2 million, but it hasn't stopped her.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is that, right, there's these patterns where we see people and they target children because they're much easier to manipulate, and get them very early. So she uses kids and she basically does what that's like classic middle school girl stuff, which is she would isolate everyone and like the parents. And then each time there'd always be one parent that was in the doghouse. And so everyone would have to like gang up on that parent. And so there was such fear of being in the doghouse that you would go along with Tiffany. I mean, all this stuff that she does, her sister described it. She's like, she's a master at brainwashing people. She can get anyone to be on her side and then make everyone else turn on each other.
Yeah.
But one of the other things that Dr. North said that I thought was interesting is when kids are encouraged to do things they know are wrong or inappropriate. So there was a scene in which a boy like spilled water on his shirt. So he took his shirt off. And I think Claire was in the scene as well. So Hunter was getting Claire to take her shirt off. I mean, she's like 12 or 13 at the time. And she doesn't want to. And this is what she's saying, which is, when kids are encouraged to do things that they know are wrong or inappropriate, especially as a challenge, it confuses them. Kids understand adults are responsible for their well-being. So when adults interfere with that predictability of the world, of that safety, it interferes with the trust the kids have for the adult and the world in which they live in. So the damage that she did is the kids all talk about this. She damaged all of these children. Doesn't mean they can't get past it, but it really, I mean, one of the kids is sleeping with a knife by her bed. I mean, that's no joke.
Yeah. And, this is really reminiscent of, I mean, I just saw a post the other day, talking about, Judy Garland, when she played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, and, they put her on all kinds of drugs, so she would, stay awake. They did all kinds of inappropriate things with her because she was like 17 when she did that role. And then, of course, she went on to have drug addiction problems and mental health problems her whole life. And, this is a tale as old as time with child actors, and this is no different. This is just the new frontier
Yes.
of child actors. And it's hard to find a child actor that did not have a lot of adversity, or at least some adversity, which is why we're also, we see Ron Howard and we're just like, oh my God, like, how did you turn out this way?
Yeah.
It's very rare.
Yeah.
And, so it's really, really sad. And they do talk at the end about how, finally the laws are, we're starting to get some laws passed that address this and have the same kind of laws that were geared towards child actors. And even with the laws with child actors, they still struggle. But like here, because these things are being filmed not on a movie set, but in someone's house, it's much harder to regulate.
Yes.
On a movie set, you can regulate how many hours a kid is working, and you can make sure they have their schooling done. And that was the thing about Piper. Like, I think she probably dropped out of school a long time ago. And
yeah, we don't know
back.
If she's ever been to school. I'm like, can she read or write?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure she can, but like, can she? I don't know.
Yeah. And they referenced the, so this is, these laws go state by state, but they referenced the law that Demi Lovato was a part of, where that governs these influencers. So it says California's new child influencer laws expand protections for children who perform online content. Effective January 1st, 2025, content creators who feature minors in at least 30% of their content must deposit 65% of the minor's gross earnings into a trust account for when they reach adulthood. Child influencers are now included within the definition of child performers who receive earnings protections under California's Coogan law. So, but there's a lot of these, I think this came up I didn't watch that Ruby Frank.
Oh God, I don't know. I can't watch that.
But I think like one of the reasons they maybe left, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I do know some influencers or these parents who are doing this, they will leave a state once they pass laws like this. They'll move their family.
And is that what Ruby Frank did? Is that why? Because I think they moved at one point, right?
I think they did move from one state to another to avoid some laws, but like I said, I didn't see the documentary, so I'm not sure what states were involved. But I do know, people are moving out of California.
Yeah.
In order to because there are people who their entire livelihood is their family content that they put out there, and 30%, that's doesn't take much. If your channel or your whatever is about your family, and a lot of those the trad mom stuff, it's all your kids are in all of it.
Yeah.
So to avoid having to put the money, 65%.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's more than the Coogan.
Yeah, the Coogan is only like 30.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So these now, at least in California, these child influencers have more power than child actors.
Yeah. Well, but I'm glad California passed it, because a lot of these kids are here, and it's like, maybe it will, but change things. But then you're like, how do you regulate that? How do you know?
Because you're doing it inside your house.
Yeah. But also, who is going to be monitoring? Yeah. Like, you need infrastructure. You got to have someone monitoring what's going on. Because I know I've had clients that worked at YouTube. I know YouTube has all of these people that really their job is to look for questionable content and get rid of it. But, YouTube's not going to pay for that. They're protecting themselves. Like, you would need a governing body to constantly be looking and making sure and tracking and seeing, like, wait a second, are they violating this? Are they violating this?
What are they going to do? Go out there and view every bit of content on the internet that involves children? No, it would take an army of people working around the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you enforce that 65%? Because then you would have to know what the numbers are that Piper's earning each month.
Yeah.
And then you would have to get 65%, like that kind of thing. That's also, that's very different. And, at least in the, in acting industry, right, there are unions. I mean, SAG-AFTRA, I don't know offhand. I would have to ask somebody who works with kids, but I don't know if your kid gets on a TV show, if part of SAG-AFTRA is like, you now have to set up this separate bank account and we need to see proof of it. And we need to see this, this, and this. And this is how, in order for your kid to be part of this union and working, we need to be seeing this. But the other thing that was brought up, and I think this is also another big problem with social media, is, as we've all talked about, which is like, when you are anonymous, you can do anything. You can be anything or do anything. And one of the things that Tiffany would do is Tiffany would get on Piper's accounts and Piper's phone and start bad mouthing like the other kids that are part of the squad that left as Piper. She'd also she bullied Claire, like her niece. She bullied these kids. She would talk shit about the other kids as Piper. And that's the other part of it too, which is that's very powerful because, again, just like this guy being Megan, right? Like what people are thinking is, oh, this is a fight between a 14-year-old and a 14-year-old, or this is like a kid and a kid getting into it. It's like, no, it's not. This is an adult pretending to be a kid to yell at you. I mean, to talk shit about you.
Yeah.
But you're the kid, and so you don't know who that is. And that's the part about all of this, the levels of it, of how just, right, like how
super damaging
and difficult. There was something else. I just like this Dr. North. She said something else that I thought was really smart. Where is it? Oh, and this is what I wanted to talk about, which is, so from my experience, when I first started working with millennials, like, back in 2012 or whatever, the one thing that I noticed about them that felt very different than when I was in my 20s was how they struggled with intense judgment, like such fear of judgment of self and others, and of making mistakes. And there was a lot of perfectionism that I saw. And the thing is that, and what Dr. North talks about is that what's happening is social media is interrupting what children need, which is when everyone is able to comment on your mistakes, you never have the freedom to try things and do things. And that does not allow a child to really understand. And, if you keep doing these fake scenes that are about you, but not about you, it's like you never get a chance to deal with real emotions. And, this is a very extreme example, but what I saw with my clients was this real fear of making mistakes. Now, everyone, no one wants to make a mistake and it always looks bad, but I felt like because their lives were so out on display and because they were very used to being judged on this level all the time, I saw a lot of my clients that they feared taking chances. They feared looking foolish. They feared, right? Wouldn't ask this person out on a date because I didn't want to look foolish because they just had never allowed themselves to do anything and be foolish. And we see kids today, this has been a big criticism of young adults, which is, oh, there's such a fear-based generation. It's like, yeah, because they've been growing up having people criticize them. And that is not healthy. It is not healthy development for everyone to be able to comment on what you're doing and not doing. So that's my soapbox on that one. And this is a problem. It is a real problem. And I've been, because I think about this stuff all the time. This is what I do. I really think about kids and I really do believe that we have to start addressing these things, the things that the phones are taking away from them. We have to teach them how to be mindful because there is no ability to be mindful anymore. They're struggling with decisions. They're struggling in a lot of ways that obviously young people have always struggled with, but never to this degree because we've never had this before. Right? Like,
yeah,
it's unreal.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think though, I don't know if I would necessarily lump it all into like all millennials or all of the generation. You just happen to be seeing the people who it's affected the most.
Yes. Well, I'm seeing people that are anxious in
Right.
such, and that's
they maybe have a tendency to be,
yes,
they would have been anxious regardless, but now they're even more anxious, and
yes,
you would have seen them anyway, but in a different state. Because look, some people are able to navigate social media and some people aren't.
Mm-hmm.
And even people our age get too obsessed with it. And so I think it's more in the hands of the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
It can be more dangerous and destructive than others.
Yes. I think that, there's this book I'm reading right now, but it's been slow going because it gives me anxiety. It's called The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt. And, what he really talks about is, and again, this isn't blaming the parents. I'm one of these parents too. We didn't know, but just the fact that we have overprotected kids in real life and underprotected them in online. That's like that's
a Scott Galloway quote.
Yeah. Okay. So that's one of his big thrusts, in this book that he's talking about. And that's absolutely, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that, again, I think that obviously parents have to have more conversations. I wish I had more conversations with Max about social media. I just didn't know. Couldn't foresee this or where we were going.
Is he on social media?
Not really. Sorry. I mean, YouTube and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we do, we're always monitoring what he's watching and looking and seeing. Mm-hmm. That's right. He's not really on social media, but I do know, just talking to your kid about the internet, I did talk to him about if you Google certain words and what's going to happen and, all of those kinds of things. But I don't know, how has Layla dealt with it? I mean, Layla's navigated it pretty well.
I think so. I think there were times like in high school where, maybe if she saw people doing stuff or that she wasn't included in, she didn't really ever. I mean, this sounds like conceited, but she's pretty popular.
Yeah.
So we didn't really run into that. But, she had a few things where,
so girls never ganged up on her and bullied her? Or...
No, not that I'm aware of. Not online. I mean, she had like squabbles with, some friends. And some after eventually they would, work it out. But no, people were not going that I don't know. But she never came to me and told me about anything. And she pretty much tells me everything.
Yeah.
So,
well,
I don't know.
Yeah. On TikTok, she has like 50,000 followers. And I was like, how did you get all these followers? Like, I could barely get any followers. And I mean, she's very sad. Like she knows that, I post about my life. And she is in a bathing suit sometimes because she's in Hawaii and she's at the beach. This is her life. So she's not curating this content, but she's very savvy and knows that there are probably people following for that.
Oh, she's had like sugar daddies approach her.
Oh, I had someone approach me. I was so excited. I was cool. This guy approached me about giving me $500 twice a week. And
do what?
I don't know. I would never have to see him or touch him or anything. But I blocked it.
Oh, Tess, you should have looked into that.
I'm like, I just don't.
You say, I don't want to, but my sister might.
Well, no, it's your aunt. My aunt might want. Yeah. So wait, she's gotten sugar daddies. So what kinds of offers has she gotten?
I don't know. I don't think they got like into the nitty gritty. They don't start out that way. They, they can contact you and, so she's had people contact, DM her about stuff. She just like deletes it. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people do that. So it's just a strange world. It's a really strange world.
It is a strange world. It is a strange world. And I think the thing is, I think people enter all of this stuff going, oh, well, if I don't have to see them or touch them or, oh, it's a video. How is this right? Like nobody's hurt, Piper's not having to meet these men in person, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, no, it does do damage.
It does do damage to a child. Like
Absolutely.
a grown woman who does it intentionally knows what she's doing. She's like, look, I'll do this for this money. That's one thing. But no, children, absolutely not. And young adults too. They're still not fully formed.
And so that's always, that's always concerning. But the other part of it too is, as we see, no matter what it is, it always escalates. Right? Like this behavior, whether it's drugs or sex, everything always has to escalate. And it's almost like with Tiffany too. She kept having to escalate. Like it was never about the money because they've earned enough money. It's like she keeps having to push some kind of line and with her kid and with herself too. I mean, the one thing was that I guess the FBI did contact her sister patients, and Ashley is patient's wife. They contacted the other parents, but I guess they couldn't move forward because, the federal government won't prosecute unless they know for sure they can win.
Right.
So there isn't enough information.
And it's the word of all these kids.
Yeah. Who have similar stories. I mean, it's pretty damning.
No, I know. Again, I'm not saying it's he said true, but
it's he said, she said, he said, it's
right. It's problematic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, gosh.
Well, this makes me sad. This is just like, this is what our world is come to. I mean, I know, look, there's always been horrible things that happen, but this just seems too easy. It was too easy for this woman to do this.
It's way too easy. And that's part of I think that's part of the problem is it's way too easy. I think it's very easy to justify it. Again, I think it's very easy to justify a lot of it. I think it's very easy to stick your head in the sand and go, I think it's just young kids. I mean, the one thing is, especially with these, I don't really watch a lot of these family channels, but anytime I see these clips, I'm like, this looks so stupid.
Oh, they are.
And so boring.
These shows on these kids' channels, they're so dumb. And I can't believe that kids think they're funny. Or who's watching them, or maybe kids aren't watching them. Maybe it's just all the same pedophiles consuming all of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think some of that kid stuff shows are, sometimes they could be slightly clever or interesting. But yeah, and the thing was that by the time Max was, I want to say 8 or 9, maybe 10, he was done. And so that's what we're talking about. It's like these families that are doing these goofy dances and running around and creating scenarios and scenes, this really goofy material and content. It's just like, who is, the question is who is watching it? And it's like, come on, this cannot be real people. I mean, I can't stand it. I started following this account because I like to follow dog influencers. My favorite dog influencer is Miss Peaches. So I always follow Miss Peaches and to see what she's up to. Like I check in the morning, see what's happening with Peaches and her brother Pete, the beagle. But I started following this other account with Cactus the Rescue, which is the cutest dog, Cactus. He is so sweet. And the guy that owns him is cute too. But he and his girlfriend are now creating this like staged content, and it's driving me crazy. It's like, can I just see Cactus in his natural habitat? You know what I mean? Cactus being Cactus, like, there's a cat. He also has a cat, and the cat and the dog are trying to figure out how to get along. And those two, they're just very cute, both of them. But they're creating the staged information, like, oh, do you want to cuddle? He's like, yeah, babe, I want to cuddle with you. Oh no, I'm talking to Cactus. You're just like,
oh, God.
And then people are commenting on this. I'm like, what is happening? Just let the dog be. It's driving me crazy.
Just want to check out the dog, make sure the dog's okay.
Yeah. I just want to see dogs being cute and pugs running around and doing silly things and other dogs and rescues. I want to hear a heartfelt story once in a while about a dog that was rescued and now it's living its best life. That's what I want. I don't need staged content.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Look,
is vague.
anyone out there who's a parent and has to deal with this is it's tough.
Yeah.
It's hard to know what to do, and it's hard to there are some parents who stick to their guns, but a lot of parents just give in because myself included, because it's
with how much content, like how much social media,
how much, like what age do you get a phone? What age can you be on Instagram? What age can you do this or do that? And,
well, they also kind of left us hanging out to dry. I just want to say, because it wasn't until 2023, until the Surgeon General came out and said, I don't think it's good to give these kids phones until they're 14. Like, it took them 10 plus years to
get a definitive statement.
Now we have data. Okay, now here's the data. I mean, again, we're going to see data come out about COVID and how it affected young people and the impact of it in 20 years. Like, so they finally got the data. And so now they're finally kind of going, and that's really what happened with, Gen X parents that raise primarily Gen Z kids. Again, I'm not lumping everyone together, but that's kind of what what the general thing is. And that's why I say to parents, it's, we just didn't know. Like, no one was, it was the wild, wild west. We didn't know, what this would impact.
It still is, because it's constantly changing. You know what I mean? Like they constantly are coming up with more and more stuff. And now with AI, mean, that is really scary, because I have been fooled by several AI videos that I believed were true. And then I did a little research, found out they weren't. So it's really...
Was it those really large, overweight people working in the factory?
No, I knew that was AI. I knew that was AI. No, one of them was, I saw this video that showed R. Kelly walking out of a prison, with flanked by some, lawyer looking people, and it had a thing on it that says R. Kelly's released from prison. And he's going up to this podium to address this crowd of people. And I'm like, what the fuck? I thought he was sentenced to 25 years to life. Why is he out of prison? And so I started Googling, and I found out, no, this is a fake video. But I think a lot of people see this stuff and they believe it, and they don't doubt, they don't question it, they don't go research it. And I'm seeing stuff more and more on Instagram all the time that's clearly AI. And sometimes it's good AI. And then you have to investigate and see, is this real? That's really scary. Very, very scary. So now we have to, we're manufacturing stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's scary. It is very, very scary. And, the more we manufacture stuff, the less that we have to deal with real people and real feelings and real emotions. And the more we, and people think it's always been that way. People think this is the way to go. Let's systematize things. Let's make things easy. And it always comes back to, people just don't want to deal with the messy shit of life. And life is messy. People are messy. They're going to let you down. They're going to disappoint you. And they'll also do amazing things too. And it's like, God, just live. I want to say one quick thing about these parents though. I do feel for some of these parents in the sense that, some of these kids really started this themselves. It wasn't I think some of these parents pushed their kid into it, but it sounded like a lot of those kids, if I think about Sawyer's parents, it sounds like he was 9 years old. He starts this channel. He's really into it. He wants to do it. And then he comes along and says, I have this great opportunity. And again, I think your kid being gone for 12 to 13 hours is concerning, but there is that piece of, as a parent, you want to foster your kid's interests. You want to, you don't want to be like, no, Sawyer, you can't be a star. You want to foster that. And so that's another piece of with the parents where it is tricky, right? At what point do you say to your kid, I'm going to be the parent here? And no, I know you've been working on this for the last 6 years, 7 years, but you're done. That's what happened. It sounds like that's what happened to that kid, Gavin. It sounds like those parents just yanked him right out. Good for them. Good for them, because that was. But
he won't speak to his. He's the one who won't speak.
No. That's someone. Oh. That's Jensen.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of these kids. So, Gavin was the kid that Tiffany was hitting on, and that she and Gavin, he had this relationship, the ship with Piper, and then the parents, I think, kind of got wind of things and yanked him out and never spoke to her again.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Well,
pray for the children.
Yes. And let's hope that they find something on Tiffany and prosecute her. She needs to be behind bars. She really does. She and Hunter. My opinion.
Yeah. Well, hopefully she's not out there continuing to victimize people.
But I think she is.
Yeah.
And I think as long as Tiffany is free, I think Tiffany's going to victimize people no matter where she is and what she's doing. I think that's unfortunately the issue is
true.
Something happened to her. Something happened to her.
Something.
All right. So if you enjoy our podcast, please go check out our Patreon. We do a weekly bonus. We have a true crime for our upper tier, and we also do an Ask Us Anything for the upper tier. So go check us out over there. You get all the shows ad-free as well. If you'd like to support us, you can subscribe to the podcast. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review. Those really do help us. Follow us on social media as we talk about social media. Don't worry, there's no goofy videos. We're like dragging our children out.
No, we're not exploiting our children on social media.
Go check us out on social media at Psych Legal Pop. And I think that's it. Share, tell a friend about the podcast, spread the word. And we will see you all. We're covering Sister Wives. It's back. So we're covering Sister Wives on Mondays and doing, documentaries and other things on Thursdays.
And we're going to start covering the TLC show Poly Family.
Yes, we are.
Starting next week.
Super excited for that one.
So
super excited. Yeah.
If you're into polygamy, if you're, I don't know.
If you're into family,
if you're into family, we don't know what the show's going to be like. So come along, find out.
Yeah, but the preview looks so good.
It really does.
It really, really looks good. So I'm super excited for that. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye.